Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 25th edition of the Summit State of the River. And once again, we have a great crowd. And as is wont to happen when we hold these meetings, and especially if we're going to talk about a not so happy snowpack, mostly in Colorado, not here, we get weather. So we're happy to provide that service. My name is Jim Pokran. I work for the Colorado River District, and we're sponsors of this as well as the Blue River Watershed Group, and you'll hear from them later. But since this is the 25th edition, we're going to have a few words from the founder of this event, Scott Hummer. Yeah.
Thank you. It's always good to be home where your heart is, and I worked in Summit County for more than 20 years as a water commissioner, so I'm always glad to be here. 25 years ago, we started what was known as the Blue River Water Forum, and it was an event that was spawned out of the Summit Leadership Forum back then, which the county commissioners at the time, all three of your county commissioners are in the room tonight. In particular, Rick Hum at that time was really wanting to do more education for the local folks because of a growing recreational tourism economy. The big operators of Denver and the Bureau running the reservoirs, and those reservoirs becoming more recreational amenities. Believe it or not, back in 1983, we still had a lot of ag in this community. And we really started it to inform our ranchers at the lower end of the valley about the importance of measuring their water, recording their water, and getting it reported so they protected their water rights. So we're here tonight because in the West, when you touch water, you touch everything. And that's a quote from Wayne Aspinall, who represented Western Colorado in the 50s and 60s. In these 25 years, and I used to come up here as a teenager too in the 70s, this valley has changed a lot. It's a linchpin in the upper Colorado River system. It's a linchpin for water providers that take water to the Front Range. When you live in this type of area, you have to be involved and knowledgeable about your water. Enjoy tonight. Thank you.
The Colorado River District represents 15 counties in western Colorado, including some, of course. And we're governed by a 15-member board of directors, and your director from Summit County is County Commissioner Karin Stiegelmeier. She's here. And she's with her compatriots on the BOCC, Thomas Davidson and Dan Gibbs. And as I've said before, your county commissioners are among the most water savvy across the district. Just don't tell anybody else I said that, especially Mesa County. But certainly your county commissioners deserve a big salute because they are quite water savvy. All right, we're going to start with a keynote speaker right off the bat because he's the new state climatologist. His name is Russ Schumacher. And Russ just assumed the position last fall from longtime state climatologist Nolan Duskin, who's spoken to this group before. So Russ comes to us. He's from the state of Minnesota. He went to college, undergraduate at Valparaiso in Indiana. He came out to CSU. He was a graduate student, then he joined the faculty, then he went to Texas for 2 years, and then he said he got back as fast as he could. Russ is also known for one other fact. It's because he provided this answer on the show called Jeopardy. Some people may have heard it. And his answer was, what are tin pans? And that won him the 2004 Tournament of Champions for the show Jeopardy. So you probably hate me for saying that, but come on up, Russ.
Oh, okay. All right, we'll go through them quick then. Well, thanks everybody. Big crowd here, and right. I know that as Jim mentioned, Nolan has talked to this group before and has sort of been an icon in our area of providing weather and climate information around the state and keeping track of things. And so I'm very happy to step into his shoes and hopefully provide a bit of useful information. Obviously, there's a lot of interest in where we are with the water situation at this point in the water year, as we're starting to get into the meltout season, and look at a bit of where we've been and where we're going here in the future for the coming months. So you can go ahead, I'll acknowledge some of the other folks there at the Climate Center as well. So if we first of all go back, this maybe sort of feels like distant memories at this point, going back to the end of our water year. So in this world, we look at the water year starts October 1st, goes through September 30th. So this was the water year 2017 that ended in September of 2017. And especially in the southeast part of the state, really everywhere east of the divide, it was quite an ample water year, and statewide 30th wettest on record, with the only patches of drought at that point being sort of far out in western Colorado, and things generally looking in good shape at that point. But then right around the start of the water year, then things kind of shut off, and you can go ahead to where we are now. So this is October through April. So I forgot to point out on the last one, but you probably figured it out. On the left is the precipitation relative to normal. The greens are wetter than normal. The yellows and reds are drier than normal. The actual red color there is where it is record dry for this time period. And so we're now 7 months through the water year, October through April, and you can see that it really is as we'll talk about here, it's a dividing line kind of through the middle of the state, where the northern half of the state has done okay throughout the water year thus far, with near normal to even some areas above normal up in the northern mountains. But you go about south of Summit County and things look really bad, with the worst spots especially being Montezuma County, far southwest Colorado, Baca County, far southeast Colorado, and the Sangre de Cristos. And so you can see we've now got, so that's the drought monitor on the right there. This is last week's map, and we've gotten up to the D4, the exceptional drought in the far southwest corner there, Montezuma County and Durango area there. And the map that will come out tomorrow morning will also now have the D4 exceptional drought in the Sangre de Cristos there. So you can see, again, north of I-70 or so, things are not looking too bad. The northeastern plains have gotten some excellent storms, with good moisture over the spring. Same goes for the northern mountains. Summit County is kind of at the center point of all of this, where you go a little bit south and it gets really bad. You go a little bit north and things are not in such a bad shape. So you can go ahead. And this is through March, but it won't look all that different on the left-hand side. This is just ranks, statewide ranks around the country from October through March. The Southwest has been dry. So fourth driest for Colorado over that period statewide. Utah, Arizona have been exceptionally dry. But if you go up to the Midwest, they've had, it's been cold and snowy up there. People have been complaining there. It's been winter for, winter all the way into May. But down here, clearly it's been drier. You can go ahead to the next one. And, no, that's a repeat. You can go ahead again. There we go. And so just to kind of then, we'll step back and put this in a little bit of the historical perspective where we are. This is statewide for the October through March period, just because that is the, kind of the first 6 months of the water year that we've been looking at. And you can compare some of these, past years that many of you probably have memories of very dry years and where we are this year. So this is again statewide. The 76-77 major drought sort of still stands out a lot as being by far the driest statewide there, and then 2001, 2002, a bit wetter, but also very dry. And you can see our data point on the very far right there for this winter is not too far, not that much better than the 2001, 2002 winter. There we go. Now we're going to put everybody to sleep after that dinner. But if you stay awake, you'll see the plots a little better. Anyway, so we're, that's where we are, and I think the next one will show just the if you go ahead, Jim, so this is just it's basically most of western Colorado. The National Centers for Environmental Information, they divide the state up into several climate divisions, which are roughly defined by the drainage basins, and so this one is sort of everything that goes into the Colorado, so most of western Colorado. And so here that 76-77 winter really stands out as being so far below normal, whereas this year, again, 6th driest for this period in this basin. So dry, but not sort of at that record level. And then the other aspect of it that we have to mention, no, it's okay, you can go ahead to that one, is that it's been warm as well. This was the first part of the winter, which was really exceptionally warm. So November, December, January, in really all of the Southwest, and we'll explain kind of why this happened a little bit later, but really everywhere in the Southwest was just extraordinarily dry or extraordinarily warm. All those dark red states you see on the U.S. map there had their record warmest November, December, January period on record. You can see most of western Colorado was in that category. That's dark red on the left is where it was record warmest. And so it's pretty much everywhere west of the divide was record warm, and everywhere else that wasn't was very close to that. Now, those first 3 months were sort of exceptionally bad. Things have clearly gotten at least a little bit better, not worse. You can go to the next one. Because this now incorporates the full October through April period. And we're not seeing those bright red colors everywhere anymore, at least, which is a good sign. February was very close to normal for temperature. March was a little bit warm, but not exceptionally warm. April, as you'll see on the west slope, was a bit warm, but not exceptionally so. So you can still see far, down in far southern Colorado, a lot of places are record warm for the October through April period. Up in the northeast corner, it's actually been cooler than normal. But most places west of the divide, again, are in this kind of much above to record warm sort of time frame. You can go to the next one. And so we can kind of try to put this in context. I could show lots of graphs kind of like this, slicing and dicing the temperature over time. This is statewide values, but the values differ a little bit if you go to particular parts of the state, but they all certainly show this upward trend over time. In the long-term average, the upward trend there is about 3/10 of a degree Fahrenheit per decade, or that's 3 degrees Fahrenheit per century then in that trend. And you can see the last couple of years have been especially warm in this part in the winter, fall and winter time frames. Last year was the warmest. October through March statewide is our 5th warmest, and you can see a lot of those very high, very warm years have been in the last 10 to 20 years up there. Certainly some warm ones back in the 30s especially, but they seem to be coming a bit more frequently these days on the warm side of the average. So here's April. These are just hot off the presses from today, and this is precipitation on the left and temperature on the right. So again, here you don't see too many of the big bright colors in any of it, which is probably not a bad sign. It was there were pockets of the state that remained dry. Again, especially the southern, the southwest corner of the state, parts of the San Juans and down into the Cortez, Durango area, and parts of the Front Range were a little bit dry, but not nothing too terrible. Here in Summit County and other parts of the, up towards Steamboat and other parts of the northern mountains really benefited from the big storm on April 7th through 9th. That was, we'll see that on some of the graphs we look at where things were tracking sort of right near normal or maybe a little above, a little below, and then you see this big jump from that storm that brought good amount of moisture, and there were a couple other okay storms here. And then just go back to the temperature one real quick there. I was just going to point one thing out. So again, kind of this dividing line west to east. Western part of the state was a little bit warm. Eastern part of the state was a little bit cooler than average. And very windy out on the plains as well during April. It's always windy in April out on the plains, but a little bit more so even than usual. All right, we can go to the next one. All right, so let's kind of take a look now in a little more detail of what's going on. This is a statewide average, just annual average precipitation over 30 years, and you just get a sense when you look at a map like this of how, all the interesting variations that we have here in our state. Obviously here in Summit County and the surrounding areas, we've got these high peaks that get huge amounts of precipitation every year. So those purple colors are basically 40 inches of water equivalent on average, and you see all the high mountain areas get those, and then they're right next to areas like the San Luis Valley that gets less than 7 inches a year on average. You can see some of the different river valleys, the Arkansas and the Platte River basins get a little bit less precipitation than the ridges, the Palmer Divide and the Cheyenne Ridge to the north, and you can see some of the other, where the Grand Valley is out west and other places. So it's kind of endlessly fascinating to look at maps like this. And the next one will be sort of a loop through the months of what this looks like. And so this just kind of gives you a sense through the year of, that shift, especially of the precipitation being so, abundant on average, at least in western part of the state, in the mountains in the winter, really the fall through the early spring, and then it all shifts to the eastern plains in the summertime there. So May, June, July, August are when we get most of our precip east of the divide, but west of the divide it's all almost all coming in the winter and a bit in the fall and the spring. So these are kind of fun to take a look at and pick out your favorite location and see those variations over time. All right. So now I'm just going to walk through a few stations to just get a sense for what we've seen. Here's our most representative station to where we're sitting tonight, just over at Dillon. And what I'm going to show on all of these basically is precipitation for the water year, so going back to October 1st. So the left-hand side over here will be October 1st through yesterday, basically on the right-hand side, and there will be 4 lines on there. The brown one is the average. The green will be this year. The light blue will be the wettest year on record, and the pink is the driest year on record. So here's where we are at Dillon this year, and actually sitting a couple of inches above average for precipitation at this point through the water year. You can see a few of those. It was running kind of dry early on, other than right at the very beginning, sort of flat through the new year or so, and then we had a few good storms. You can see that big jump in April there that really are going to keep us, at least at this station, above average for at least for a while. And we've got storms like the one going on right now that should keep us there in this part of the state. We'll look at some other spots. Here's Georgetown, not quite Summit County, but close enough. Again, we see there at Georgetown, very, very close to the average for the water year at this point. Again, you can see that big April storm in there, and then a few little ones along the way. Here's Climax, again, in the other direction. You see that April storm really kept things up above. So in the parts of the state that benefited from that storm in early April, we got this nice jump, and that was a really key to the sort of precipitation, at least here in the early springtime. So we'll go ahead now to some other places that are not faring as well. We go out farther west to Grand Junction. Now we're going to start to see those stations that are well below normal for this point in the year. So Grand Junction through this point, should be at about 5 inches, and they're only at about 3. They were tracking with their driest on record through the first of the year, essentially, but so things were looking really bleak out. I went out to a meeting out there right after the first of the year, and everybody was very, very concerned, and I think people are probably still concerned out in Grand Junction, but it at least is not as bad as we were looking through that point. Next one is Gunnison. Similar story. a few inches below average at this point in the water year. And one of the reasons I showed that loop through the months, right, is as you get out to the west slope, we're sort of past the really peak, heavy precipitation season. Obviously, when the monsoon kicks in August or so, that will give a boost. But these are areas that will have a hard time making up that deficit in the summer, just because the summer is not generally a really wet time of year out in the southwest corner. Next one is Cortez. So right now, way down in the southwest corner where things are really bad right now. So the station there didn't report data for that storm on April 7th through 9th. The other like Kokoraz stations nearby got maybe a quarter of an inch. So it isn't maybe quite as bad as it looks here, but it's still the driest year on record for sure for Montezuma County, so that's the part of the state that is in very, very bad shape, where we're well below the driest year on record at this point. And so if we look at snowpack, I think Troy's going to show some more details on this, so I won't go into a ton of detail on it. This is what the statewide snowpack map looked like as of yesterday. Again, this dividing line through the state, with the southern half being very dry, the northern half being okay in general. Once we get past mid-April, these maps start to get a little bit misleading, because you have some stations that just on average would have melted out already at mid-elevations and things like that, and things change very rapidly when the melt starts. But the main point is still there, that the southern half of the state is in really, really bad shape. There should be a lot of snow still in the San Juans on May 1st, and there just isn't this year. You can go ahead. We'll look at a few individual stations. So now these are maybe more relevant here in Summit County than some of those precip maps, because it's the reservoir of water stored in the snow, right? That's what we care about here. And looking at the individual stations can give us a little more context than maybe the map can. So the left is Summit Ranch, mid-elevation station, and then Grizzly Peak on the right is a higher elevation station over 11,000 feet. So on each of these, the gray is the average precipitation, the black is the average snowpack, the red is the average snowpack, the black is the precipitation for this year, and the blue is the snowpack for this year. As you can see at the mid-elevation stations, we're not that far off. We expect to be melting out at this time of year, right? The early May, it's already starting to get warm at mid-elevations. But then if you look over at the higher elevations, things really look pretty good, at least at this particular site, where the precipitation has tracked right along the average, the snowpack has tracked right along the average, even bumped up above normal, in partly because of that storm in early April. Now is starting to drop off, but it's really following that red line pretty closely. I think the next one shows a couple of the snowtell sites at the ski areas, and you start to see the discrepancy between, again, Summit County being okay, and then you get a little bit south or a little bit west, and things change quite a bit. So the snowtell site at Copper is following the average fairly closely, but if you go over to Vail Mountain, now they were well below average for precipitation. Things are starting to melt well below when they should be. And so things are not, again, a little west and a little south, not looking so great. And here's kind of the aggregate look at those. So the upper Colorado River Basin on the left, there's a lot of lines on here, but the ones to pay attention to really, the blue or the purple and the yellow are the average. This year is that really the thick dark blue line, and then the reds are the driest years. And so again, upper Colorado River Basin, below normal for this time of year, but not by that much. The sort of shape of the curve is following fairly well with the normal, 88% of normal at this point, so really not too bad. But then, if you go down to the southwest corner, things are in really bad shape. We're almost, starting to get down close to complete melt out in early May, when that usually isn't happening until the end of May in that area, or even into June. And so very rough shape down there, barely hanging on above the 2002 low point in that part of the state. All right, so let's take a look at what's going on right now and coming up. I always enjoy looking at these visualizations. So this comes from it's more fun to go to the website than for me to show it to you on the PowerPoint, but it's hard to go to the website while I'm standing up here. But this is earth.nullschool.net. It's got all these great visualizations of the upper levels or the winds at different levels of the atmosphere. And so what this is showing, basically it's showing the jet stream. And this is what we're always looking at for, what's going to be happening with the weather situation. So one thing to point, and so you can see the airflow, the waves through the upper levels of the atmosphere and where the jet stream is. This one thing to point out, these are a little bit misleading in that it looks like you could fly from the East Coast to Europe in about 30 seconds if you were following these winds. That's not quite, the winds aren't quite blowing that fast, but it really shows you the picture of where the waves are and what's happening. And this is last night. The little green dot shows roughly our location here. And we've got this big trough of low pressure coming into the southwestern United States, and that's bringing the precip that we've got right now. We expect these kinds of storms in the spring, so it's good to see that we have one coming in. This is going to provide a lot of moisture to especially the northern mountains, the northern Front Range, and northeast Colorado, and then there's a whole bunch of severe weather going on out in Oklahoma and Kansas and so forth. And so anyway, this is the sort of pattern that we've got right now, and this is the kind of pattern we like to see in the spring when we are in need of water. Again, some of those parts of the state that have been shut out already aren't going to benefit all that much from this storm, like the southwest corner, although the San Juans are going to do okay. But this is kind of our general pattern, and I show it to kind of just get the jet stream in your mind, because we'll look at that going back as well over the winter thus far. So one of the things that drives the jet stream, especially in the winter, is El Nino, or the El Nino Southern Oscillation. So you've probably heard these terms, and certainly they get a lot of attention in the wintertime. This winter we've been in La Nina conditions, which really what that means really is just that the ocean water near South America is cool in the Pacific, and then it's warmer out in the Western Pacific. But what that does is it drives that jet stream pattern to vary in different ways. And what it usually will do is bring, kind of keep us in the flow that'll bring the jet stream across northern Colorado, keep things fairly cool or fairly wet and sometimes cool in northern Colorado, but dry in southern Colorado. And that's doesn't always work out that way either, but that's very much what we've seen this winter after January. What we're going to see going forward is the La Nina is going to go away, and we're going to go back to near neutral conditions. Beyond that, it's pretty hard to say. There's some indication we might go towards El Nino by next winter, but basically beyond, at this point in the year, it's very hard to predict what next winter is going to look like, even in terms of ENSO. So we can go ahead to the next one. So this is where we were in, got it, yep. This is where we were in the early part of that winter, right, when it was so warm. And so what these maps show is basically was the pressure at that jet stream level higher or lower than normal, and where it's red, it was higher than normal. And what this is showing is there's this giant ridge of high pressure over the southwestern U.S., really for like this whole 3 months, essentially. And that was why it was record warm, record dry everywhere in the southwest. This is actually not that common for La Nina. This is a somewhat unusual condition for that. So the jet stream was way up in Canada. We weren't getting any storms in Colorado. If you go ahead now to the periods in February through April, this is a much more La Nina-like pattern, where it's kind of lower pressure than normal to the north, higher to the south, and the jet stream is kind of cutting across northern Colorado or so, which benefits the northern mountains but not the southern mountains in general, and that's really kind of what we've seen. And so that's the pattern that's held. So we can go ahead. So where we are now, we already sort of looked at this with the cool visualization, but we've got this nice storm moving in to the Four Corners region, bringing good precip out the door here, and that should persist overnight. After that, we'll probably go back, and next week will be warmer and drier again, and then we'll see what happens beyond that. So there's the 7-day precipitation forecast. This was the forecast from last night, so it includes some of the rain that's already fallen and snow that's already fallen, but you can see that big bullseye over northern Colorado, and the next one zooms in on that. So this is kind of what we're looking at from this current storm. Really nice moisture for the northern mountains especially, but they kind of miss out on the southeast part of the state for the most part. All right, and then if we look out into the spring, or into the summer, that is, these are the outlooks out into May, June, July. For precipitation here, basically summertime precipitation, for a lot of reasons, is hard to forecast, and it's more or less kind of just anybody's guess at this point is sort of what the map is showing. But if we look at temperature on the next one, the indication there is for warmer than average conditions, are likely sort of everywhere in the south and southwestern half of the country. And so that sort of is what we're looking at for the summer. Warmer than normal, but not a lot of strong signals for precip one way or the other. All right, so really quickly to finish up, just going to talk about a few of the things we do at the Climate Center and that we're trying to build up. So one is our COAGMET network, the Colorado Agricultural Meteorological Network. So this is a network of weather stations all across the state. 75 of them right now, with 10 more. In the last 2 weeks, we've gotten several of those 10 coming to the West Slope installed, and so we'll have data flowing on those soon. So especially, we sort of, the reason it's there is to look at stuff like evapotranspiration for agriculture, but of course anybody can look at the data, and it might be useful for lots of other applications as well. The one caveat is it doesn't, right now the stations only are good, they're not heated, the rain gauges are not heated, so they only really are good for measuring rain, not snow. But in any case, we've kind of really built up the mapping, and so you can look at the map around the state. If you go to the next one, it just shows an example. You can click on one of those dots and you'll get the current conditions, and you can go back and look at the historical data and stuff as well. We go to the next one. This is just our website, so climate.colostate.edu. Becky Bollinger in our office has really revamped this, so it looks much nicer. It's much easier to get to some of the data you might want, and feel free to contact us if there's something you don't see there. Next one is, so we do these drought webinars. Now, normally once a month, but now that we're in sort of a more serious drought situation, we're doing them every 2 weeks. The next one will be next Tuesday. You'd have to just go in and put your email address in basically to get the information for it, but you can go and see that, or all the graphics are just there on our website too. But this will be Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. if you're interested in kind of getting the rundown on even more than what I showed here. Next one, and so if you ever saw Nolan Duskin give a talk, he had to make his pitch for getting a rain gauge, and I have to continue that tradition, although I realized about a half hour on my way up the canyon that I forgot to bring one with me. I would normally give one away, and Nolan would, somehow, I don't know, Nolan always had one in his pocket or something, it seemed like. But anyway, so help us out if you're interested. If you go to the next one. This is the network, CoCoRaHS, Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network, cocorahs.org. You put a gauge in your backyard or your field or wherever. You go to the next one, and it feeds into this network. Here was just a day last summer. This is what the network looks like. Very heavily populated along the heavily populated areas of the urban corridor. Not as many as we'd like in the mountains or out on the eastern plains, so we'd love more observers up here in Summit County. It's easy. You go out and you look at it's maybe a little harder when you have to melt snow, but it's still pretty easy. So we'd love to have your data if you're interested in participating. Check it out, or I can, and it's nationwide. It's actually international. You can see some Canada data there. So I think that's the last one, or the next one just has my contact info there. So feel free to get in touch with us if you have needs for weather and climate data. That's what we're here for. Feel free to contact us. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We like to post, weather tidbits on, what happened last week, on this day in the past, or what the current conditions are. So if you're on those platforms, check us out, and I will stop there. And if we have any time for questions, I will be happy to take them, or I'll be around after we're done.